Good evening, respected viewers. This is George from Ireland. From my background, you might be able to guess where I am. That's right, I'm in Moscow. So, this is a video about expatriate life in Moscow. It is a gigantic city. It's 1.5 times bigger than London. It can look any major metropolis in the face. Moscow has so much to offer. There's an awful lot going on. Let's say it's got a very lively cultural scene. Everything from classical music concerts to, modern music. In terms of opera, theatre, there's an awful lot to do and see. It's got so many museums and galleries, and its historical heritage is almost unrivaled. People often ask me if Moscow is a pricey city. Well, the cost of living doesn't have to be high. It depends what you're talking about. Certainly accommodation in the city centre is expensive. There's no getting away from that. However, if you were to rent a 1 or 2 bedroom flat in an ordinary block of flats on the edge of the city, that could be quite affordable. Certainly cheaper than in a large city in a western country such as Ireland. Let me see. Public transport goes everywhere. There are over 400 stations, so getting around can be very cheap. They have an excellent system of stations which are very wide, very spacious trains and so on. Open 5:30 a.m. to 1 in the morning, and likewise buses going everywhere. Taxis likewise are much more reliable than they used to be, and the days when you could hail them in the street, just flag down any car, are long over. But it might be 300 rubles for a half-an-hour journey. Use Yandex and Uber, those apps on your phone. What else can I point out? The traffic is fairly bad, especially coming into town in the morning or out of town between 5 and 6. So no way around that. What else can I point out? Well, language. It ought to go without saying that Russian is the language of this country. However, quite a few people in Moscow speak English. I would say around 1/4 of people do speak it to some extent, particularly young people, especially if they're working in any multinational, or they're working in a high-class restaurant, hotel, something like that. But older people in the less handsomely remunerated occupations, much less likely to speak English. As an expatriate, it behoves you to learn just a smattering of Russian. You ought to at least be able to exchange pleasantries. People appreciate that. It's common courtesy. One other thing about manners. One of the very admirable things about Russians is they're very sincere. They only smile if it's heartfelt. They may come across as reserved at first, and that's because they don't pretend to like you until they actually do. So they think Anglophones are rather two-faced, particularly Americans, for cracking a great big smile the moment they meet someone, because the Russian logic is, how can you possibly be my friend? You've only just met me. So one can't judge people for doing the right thing according to their culture. As for security, it is a very safe city. There are security guards everywhere and police officers everywhere, so I do feel very safe on the streets, and there's almost no street crime. One thing is, foreigners are required to carry their passports at all times, so you could be stopped by the police and asked for it. I've known foreigners who've been here over a year and that's never happened. If your ethnicity means you appear that you may be from Central Asia or one of the countries in the Caucasus, the police are more likely to stop you and ask to see your identity document. Let me see, other things I should point out. So as for socializing, if you come here without friends, you should join Internations, and they have unthemed soirees every Saturday. There are other places you can find out about an expatriate fora, where foreigners and Russians who like to meet each other, they meet up without any particular agenda. It's not dating or something like that, not to discuss a particular topic, in certain cafes, especially on a Sunday evening. Well, there's an awful lot to see and do. There's a lot of sporting activity going on. There are many gyms and swimming pools. You can hire bicycles here. There's cycle paths. There are loads of parks to go to, so plenty of green space. It's not a cramped city in that way. And there are forests and lakes to visit. About the weather, is it cold? Well, they have proper seasons. It's a continental climate. Even in early September, I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt in the evening, but by the end of that month it was cold. Yes, December and January will be very cold, like -10 every day. The flip side of that is you can go cross-country skiing just outside the city, with lots of open-air ice rinks for a few months. But it is very warm in the summer, and you can easily go swimming in one of these little lakes outside the city. What else could I point out? Anything else I should say? Yeah, definitely recommend it. It can't be called a boring city. There's a great deal to see and do. It's not as ethnically diverse as some major Western cities, but it is very genuinely Russian. That's it.